And welcome to An Englishman in San Diego. A cup of tea, and I can tell you right now, it is the biggest cup of tea I have got in the building. Will you look at the size of this thing? Okay. I know the whole thing of okay. This is smaller, but it's very far away. No, it's not that. This is a big cup of tea. This is my hand, and this is the size. It's huge. It is required today because I am absolutely shattered. I will explain more about that as we go into today's episode. Right, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What this is a weekly episode where we talk about con culture, all the things that happen at Comic-Con, all the things that get attracted to Comic-Con in terms of television, pop culture, comics, and also we have some great guests on as well, which allow us to talk about these things. So it's very much female energy this week, which I'm excited about. It's going to be great. If you do want to interact with us, by all means, you can talk to us on the Google Plus event page. You go to the Google Plus window and click on Q&A. All your questions will come up on the right-hand side. You can also tweet us as well if you go to Twitter and use the hashtag CupOT. SDCC. It will come through to us. I'm keeping a search on that right now. And by all means, any questions that you want to ask, not only about what we're talking about, but just anything that you want to talk about here on the Hangout, that's what we're here for. That's what it's absolutely all about, especially as we're getting closer and closer to pre-reg. Something we're going to be talking about is a deadline that passed this week. So we'll come back to that as well. Like I say, female energy. I love this. We have ourselves three great guests with us, starting with Megan Gotch. Hello, Megan. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Now, Megan, before she started, she had a bit of a scratchy throat, and hopefully, have you got that all cleared up? Have you got a cup of tea to kind of
I'm
help
working on
soothe
it.
that?
It's almost ready.
Oh, you've got the kettle on. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I mean, it's either that or just go for the red wine, white wine, tequila. All of these things work. So, I think we have yet to have the first proper boozy one of these, where we all just get slightly drunk and.
I think it's too early here in LA for that.
Okay. Well, maybe not in Yorkshire.
Yeah, you can.
10 o'clock in Yorkshire would be fine. On a Sunday, we'd be down the pub. That'd be great. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much indeed for joining us. What's been happening in the nerdy-girly world this week, or recently, since we spoke to you last?
Oh, not much. I've been doing a lot of photography, and I actually kind of took a little bit of a blogging break because I was feeling a little bit burnt out. So starting Monday, I'm back at it, and well, starting today, I'm back at it. I have to go do I'm going to do my Halloween photo shoot today.
Excellent. I mean, I've noticed that you've still been posting a number of your daily cosplays and a couple of your, certainly from your other contributors as well. Tilly's been filling in with one or two music posts, so that's been cool. So yes, great site if you get the chance. Of course, thenerdygirly.com. Okay, we have ourselves as one of my regular partners in crime. It's Alyssa Franks from friendsofcci.com forum. Hello there, Alyssa. How are you?
I'm fine, Leonard.
Now,
wonderful.
Yes. We were talking about this before we came on air. Basically, Alyssa is feeling a little bit of a withdrawal kicking in, or it certainly kicked in around Tuesday and Wednesday, because of course last week we had a fantastic hangout where you joined us from New York Comic-Con.
Yes.
How was all of that noise once it had all died away? How was that?
It's been a depressing week. It kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not expecting to feel so withdrawn. It's definitely right up there with San Diego, the same kind of withdrawal from that. My son cosplayed for the first time, had a blast. You know, all of that. He came back with costume ideas, so I was like, yes.
Oh, he's gone full on. He's gone full addiction to the cosplay cause.
Full on.
Oh,
yep.
Fantastic.
What did you dress as?
An Assassin's Creed. One of the characters, a conglomeration of a bunch of characters. But Tuesday night, I kind of was with my family at the dinner table, and Louis and I were the only ones that had been to con and were massively massively depressed, both of us. And we both were kind of looking at each other, and it felt really very much like Frodo and Sam and Pippin, Merry and Pippin at the pub at the end of nobody else understood. So that's been my week. There's been a lot of interesting things happening on the forum, which we'll get into with a discussion about. Can we implement room clearing at San Diego, and we'll get into that.
Absolutely. There is so much to talk about when it comes to New York Comic-Con versus San Diego Comic-Con. I personally will never see it as NYCC versus SDCC. Every single event has its own flavor and its own things to contribute, and they can learn from each other. I absolutely agree with that, and it is something that we're going to talk about very soon indeed. And last but not least, we have a new face to the Cup of Tea Hangouts. Hello there, this is Katrina Dennis. Hello, Katrina.
Hey. Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I've been speaking to Katrina, who is known. Right, okay. You have changed your Twitter handle recently. What is your Twitter handle at the moment?
At the moment, the name I have on Twitter is
because I think it's a Halloween one, isn't it?
It's Skeletrina Deadness.
No.
Which I tried. I got really and it's so funny because I changed it, and then my boyfriend and my boss were like, "Can you give us spooky names too?" And I was like, "Okay." So you'll see Alicia Grosso, my boss, is Alicia Gulso, and so
I have been. Everyone who I follow on Twitter has suddenly gotten themselves a new spooky name for Halloween, and I don't think I can think of one for Leonard Sultana. So listen, if anyone creative out there can think of something for Leonard Sultana, there's no spooky variation of my name. But then again,
me too. I need help too. I couldn't think of something clever.
I'll work on it.
Mummy Ghoul. No, okay. We'll think of something. Excellent. Okay. Well, like I say, you are new to our Hangouts, so introduce yourself. Who are you, and what do you do?
I am Katrina Dennis. I go by Katrina online. I'm the Superheroes channel manager, which is kind of like an assistant editor position over at moviepilot.com. I love Star Wars, and I run my blog on okatrina.com about geek lifestyle and assorted other radness. Hey.
Because I kind of know a little bit about your background in terms of your online stuff, because you've also done stuff for Geek and Sundry as well, haven't you?
Yes, I was formerly their community manager and social media manager, and that is passed on to my podcast partner, actually, Sarah, who goes by Sarah the Rebel on Twitter. She's now in the position that I used to be in. So it was pretty cool to just hand that off and go well, I know you know what you're doing because you watch me do it every day. So it was cool. Yeah, I was with Geek and Sundry for about a year. It was great. On the last day, Felicia came in, gave me a hug, and gave me a cupcake, so that was nice.
You can't say fairer than that. I mean,
I can't complain, honestly. It's treated me well.
I think what was the reason why I brought that up is because I did want people to know that you absolutely are very much full-blown, hardcore geek. You know your stuff, and and you really want to take part in these hangouts. So it's great that you taking time.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a relatively quick one because I am absolutely shattered. Because this has been a very, very long weekend for me, because I have been to a Comic-Con of my own this weekend, one that took place in Kendal, by Cumbria. Are you okay there, Megan?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm about to go get my tea right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, but we'll be talking about that as well. We're also going to be talking about New York Comic-Con and how smaller cons have their place in the world of comic conventions. But I think we will start with yourself, Katrina, especially when we talk about some big news that came out in geekdom this week with the Warner Brothers announcement of something like 10 announcement. Or should I say, I know, we'll just take a whole bunch of darts, throw them at a wall, and whichever titles stick, those are the films we're going to release. And we're going to release them until 2010. Oh, man. It just came out, it kind of came out of the blue, just how much detail, and just, I mean, something that's, okay, let's first of all start talking about the films. Which are the ones that kind of jumped out at you that went, okay, that I'm interested in seeing?
So, I guess ultimately, the reason that the announcement did not go well was because DC told their shareholders about it in a meeting, and their shareholders were apparently not made to sign NDAs. So the ones that would have stood out and like really made DC look much more ahead of the game than they've looked over the past 5 years were Wonder Woman, which would be the first modern female superhero film out of one of the big two, as well as Cyborg, because that would be the first superhero movie under DC's name, I would say modern day, scrapping Blade and Shaft, that it would star a black character, and then Jason Momoa, who is also a person of color, is playing Aquaman, and on top of that, Ezra Miller, who is fantastic and so talented and so funny and witty, is the first openly queer actor in DC's roster of people who are going to play superheroes, because he's going to be the Flash. So these are all like 4 hard-hitting announcements that some shareholder decided to tweet
in one go.
And and DC didn't think like, hey, maybe we should have these people sign NDAs before we tell them about our like earth-shaking movies. And now it's just because it came out that way, it just kind of feels like it was swept under the rug. And like, I have a feeling that now DC has a lot of maintenance and cleaning to do to prepare for announcements at, San Diego Comic-Con more than likely, and any other future Comic-Cons as well.
I mean, I think that's the reason why it's interesting to us as a Comic-Con hangout, because it is going to be this big thing where they're just going to have to kind of pick all of these pieces up and run with them at San Diego, or indeed all the other cons that take place between now and release. Although it's interesting you turn around and say about the first modern female-led superhero movie. You're talking about sweeping things under the rug. Obviously, then we are sweeping Catwoman to one side. Out of the way.
Well, we're not going to talk about Catwoman.
We don't talk about that film and just move along.
Assorted things Halle Berry should never play, and most of them are superheroes and vigilantes. So, yeah.
And I think the other thing that's kind of getting swept under the rug as well is Green Lantern. Which is getting
well, Green Lantern wasn't that big. I don't think Green Lantern wasn't as earth-shattering because we've in recent years had a Green Lantern film. It bombed, and everyone was like, well, what are we going to do? Like, Ryan Reynolds is probably lined up to be Deadpool. Deadpool, the movie, is happening. We already know that's done, and I would really love to not see Hal or Ryan Reynolds at all in this new Green Lantern movie. I wanted it to be a movie about, like, Jon Stewart, or even better, my super boyfriend, Kyle Rayner. But that's just me. I don't know. I feel like we've had so much Hal. Like, we know who Hal is. Like, he's a pilot who was given the power of the Green Lantern, and I feel like somebody else should have the spotlight now. Like, we should have a new Green Lantern for this generation.
Well, I've seen the lineup, and it's all very nice, and it's all very strong and upright, and your Man of Steel and your Amazonian goddess. I think it's time for a Guy Gardner film. I think it's time for Guy Gardner to step up and lead his own. Okay, no one's really buying this. You can tell this from the faces on the screens that no one.
Nobody likes Guy Gardner.
Excuse
Didn't
me.
he like hit a woman once and like he was just like a big jerk?
I love Guy Gardner. He's the guy that took. He's the guy that took Ice on a date in Justice League International to a porn movie because he thought that would be romantic. This is a hero we can all stand behind. All right, maybe not. Okay. Oh, hello. I mean, it has been a massive amount of news that came out in one go. Has it been anything that's kind of attracted your attention, Megan?
I'm really excited about the Harry Potter movies that they announced.
That kind of got swept. Like you say, we've been talking about sweeping under the rug. To be honest, I saw that, and I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was just some strange, like some odd trilogy of films that was coming out. I didn't know the Harry Potter connection, and then I found out that what it was that it's this offshoot, and then it just smacks of Warner Brothers milking once again the Harry Potter franchise.
Yeah, the book is super, super tiny. It's a novella, so I don't know how they're going to make 3 movies out of it, but I'll obviously go see them. I love Harry Potter.
Hey, if they
I will.
If they can make 3 movies out of The Hobbit, I think they can make 3 movies out of a,
right? Yeah.
out of a novella. Oh my word. Okay. Has there been any excitement about this on the forum, Alyssa?
There has, but I haven't really been following it. To my mind, the Warner Brother announcement, didn't they do a big announcement like 3 years ago and of 5 movies they were going to do, and none of them really came to be? Or am I misremembering something? I'm not big on DC, so I don't follow what they do.
Yeah. I mean, and that it happens a lot because a lot of these movies that they're announcing, and it kind of like weirds me out because, you know, I work in entertainment, but a lot of these movies they're announcing are just like, so we're going to make this movie. We don't have a script, a writer, a cast, or anything at all, but we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't do that unless you have somebody behind it, save for the Ant-Man debacle.
It's been, I mean, like I say, like you say, Katrina, and like you've all kind of mentioned, that there's been, I think all of us have got a favourite of the announcements that have kind of piqued our interest. Admittedly, the people turning around saying that Justice League 2 is going to get turned into 2 movies, but they've kind of said it could be Justice League and Justice League 2. It's 2 separate films. What I do find interesting is that they are skipping over a Man of Steel sequel completely. It's almost like they don't have enough faith in this.
Well, actually, there's a Batman reboot announced for 2019, and Man of Steel is following. Man of Steel was supposed to be dated for 2018. I'm not sure if that changed, but those were also announcements that were like swept even more deeply under the rug. It was like, oh, we're gonna have all these amazing movies. Also, Batman and Superman are getting their own.
Yeah. I mean, this was put up in a blog post which I saw, and I completely agree with it. Is too much or too early? Is it a poor strategy? Mm-hmm. I mean, I can understand telling shareholders at the end of the day they're the ones with their hands in their pocket and the wallets ready and waiting to shell out the cash. But at the end of the day, for that information to get out that with all these movie dates up to 6 years ahead, is it too much? Is it too early? Do we really need this kind of information even revealing to shareholders at this point?
A 10-year plan is only as good as the first movie, 1 or 2 movies that they're able to produce. Mm-hmm. So if they can't produce in the next year or 2, what good is a 10-year plan?
Good point.
And that's my biggest concern, because Batman versus Superman has, apparently it's going to have, you know, along with Batman, Superman, and Lois Lane, we've got Wonder Woman, we have Cyborg, Aquaman's in it. There's now going to be a Robin, and like it's just like the roster is too long, and there are even cast members there that are supposed to be main characters that we don't know who they're playing yet, but they're going to take on like primary roles, and I'm like, well, what's going on here, and it also it makes me like worry about these side characters that are going to get their own movies, because if you don't give them a strong introduction that makes people immediately love them, like, you're not going to sell their movie properly in the end.
No. I think there's also a like Megan says, or like Alyssa says, if you have that, I mean, we've had one film so far. We've had Men of Steel, which, for its success, did have its detractors for the mixture of tone, that this Superman was possibly a little bit too brutal. I don't think it was the full-blown swish that everyone kind of says it can be. So to have this plan almost hinge on that first film, it could still easily unravel. But at the end of the day, for us con-goers, they've got now how many weeks to go between now and San Diego Comic-Con to kind of repair the faith in the fans. I mean, 37 weeks to go till Comic-Con, just to scare the living hell out of you, by the way. 37 weeks.
Oh boy.
Hey, Christmas is just around the corner. Hello, this is a gun to my forehead. There you go.
How about this one? Badge sales and pre-reg badge sales in probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, we'll come back to that. The DC Warner Brothers thing, with this amount of information that's been released in this one massive blast, what on earth could we expect then at the Warner Brothers panel in 2015, considering that we were expecting so much from Warner Brothers, and what we actually got was a 25-second clip, 3 people walking out on stage, smiling and waving, and then leaving. Could we just suddenly have the entire opposite in 2015 and just have this massive superhero blowout on stage, where we do have Jason Momoa, where we do have Ezra Miller, where we do have the announcement? I mean, who else has been cast? I'm trying to remember.
Ray Fisher, who's going to play Cyborg. The rumor is that Jenna Malone is going to be Carrie Kelly, the Robin for the film. Who else? Scoot McNairy is in it as somebody. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. We've just had a message from Jessie Lynn, known as the 7th Candidate on Twitter, who is kind of the Cup of Tea's resident DC fan. Apparently at this point he's saying, I see now why I'm not on this Hangout this week. I'm currently screaming at my computer.
I'm a huge DC fan. I subscribe to the fact that, like, if you love something a lot, it's okay to be critical of it. You know, I grew up with Batman. I grew up with all of these superheroes, so it's just like, because they're so precious to me, I worry a lot. And so I'm worried about this new DC panel at San Diego, and I feel like if the way I treated Kick-Ass when I first went in, because I had read the comic, which has nothing to do with DC, but I went in, I read the comic, it was brutal, there was, like, rape, it was scary, and I went into the movie expecting it to be, like, the worst, most traumatizing thing in the world for me, and because I expected the worst, it was actually a lot of fun, and I really liked Kick-Ass. I'm not a fan of the second movie, but I liked the first movie, so I mean, I have no hopes or expectations for the new panel, and if it goes really well, I just come out of it, like, winning anyway.
I think that's the best way to go into anything.
Yeah. I mean, what was
zero expectations?
What was said at New York Comic-Con, Alyssa?
I didn't go to that panel. I don't know.
Hopefully, I do know that we have somebody Jesse is now joined in on the Q&As.
and he does say that it would have been nice if this announcement had happened during New York Comic-Con, and it would have made a huge splash. So that it's like a missed opportunity, I think, is what Jesse.
I'm trying to work out. I always see it as a kind of to and fro between DC and Marvel, and Marvel have had their fair share of announcements this week, all comic-based, admittedly, with their kind of reboots of some classic titles, all tying in with what looks to be Secret Wars, which is their big event for 2015. Considering that they've done something like Years of Future Past. And Armor Wars, which is the classic Iron Man story. Some utterly mind-bending title panels and pages for Marvel. And I was just trying to work. I'm trying to work out if there is just kind of let's take some of the news cycle away from them. But then again, it was such a massive drop of information. I think, Katrina, you're right. It was just lack of forethought on Warner Brothers' part to not get somebody to sign some pieces of paper on the way in.
Mm-hmm. And I feel so sad because this really could have been the moment where DC defined itself as like, look at us, we're finally like taking you seriously and being progressive. Because I've always felt that there was such a major disconnect between the creatives at DC and the people who are making all of these comics and the people in like marketing and the shareholders who are calling the shots. And it's hard to like work with a divide like that, especially because if I know anything about entertainment, it's that these shareholders are pushing DC like to catch up with Marvel, and it's like this is a competition for them, and they want their investment to play out and be more successful than Disney, which is like the giant mecca of entertainment right now.
Sure.
So
I think with Warner Brothers as well, they've always fought the fact that Marvel have had a single kind of unifying person to kind of hinge the entire thing on, which is Kevin Feige. Is it Feige or Feige?
Feige, I think, yeah. It's so funny because I've written his name a million times and I still don't know how to pronounce it.
I know, it's embarrassing, isn't it? Oh, dear me. I know that Megan is blowing on her tea, but I was going to say, is there is there anything that certainly for yourself when it comes to the characters that you enjoy from DC, is it Wonder Woman that's kind of like jumped out at you, or has there been any others that have kind of excited you in that lineup?
I haven't really followed it that much, but
I know you said the Harry Potter.
I'm really excited about the Harry Potter stuff, and I saw the last Superman movie, wasn't my favorite, and I love the old Batman movie, so if they could do stuff like that, then I would totally go and see it. But so far, I've been like a huge Marvel fan, more so than DC.
Okay. Does Marvel still have the lead at this point, do you think? Even with all these titles that have been announced until, I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth, 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that doesn't even seem like, how can you even do that? Like Katrina was saying, I'm like, 2020, that's a long time from now. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But at the moment then, is it in the DC versus Marvel, who still has the lead in terms of a grasp of their cinematic universes?
Are you asking me that?
I'm asking you that question. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like the least qualified person to answer that question. But I would say Marvel, because I'm like, Guardians of the Galaxy, they hit a home run with that movie. That movie was amazing, and I'm like comparing that to the Superman movie. I know they're totally opposites, but I would rather see Guardians of the Galaxy than Superman.
You can even take a character like Captain America. I'm sorry to interrupt you too on that, but you could take a character like Captain America who, I've always liked Captain America, but I've never found him to be like extremely interesting until I saw The Winter Soldier, which hit it out of the park, honestly, as far as a movie goes, because it showed a superhero who believes in good and does the right thing and also has these very in-depth relationships with literally every person he knows. Like, I have never seen a dude manage a friend circle the way that Captain America does.
I mean, admittedly, I understand all those plus points when it comes to Captain America. Admittedly, when Chris Evans walked out on stage at San Diego Comic-Con, the first thing that my wife was talking about was the level of integrity and the level of goodness in him. That's what really appealed when she looked into his piercing blue eyes and massive guns. And that's exactly it. She was looking up at him longingly at his integrity. It was what my wife was doing.
But I feel like, as far as Boy Scout type characters go, you've got Captain America versus Superman, and Captain America is, Superman is from another planet, but Captain America is so relatable and human, and Superman, his management of relationships is classically horrible. So, I just find him to be, more intense to follow in the movieverse right now, at least.
Sure. Well, I mean, okay, I'm going to talk to Alyssa about this, because as you and I are both long-term comic book readers, is it just me, or the pairing, or the modern contemporary pairing of Superman and Wonder Woman, to me, as a long-term reader, it still feels like he's cheating on Lois.
I don't see it, but I was always in the 60s. That's my Superman and Wonder Woman from the 60s and 70s, and this is the new portrayal. I just don't see. I'd love to see DC do a good Justice League of America movie where it is it's all ensemble and funny and laughing. DC, to my mind, always does the the single brooding character of Batman or Superman, and the Marvel characters have humanity. They fall down. They eat shawarma. Whereas I can't picture.
Yeah.
I can't picture.
I just can't picture a DC film where I'm going to have a laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't actually remember a single laugh out moment in Man of Steel. It was just so serious. It was just so dour. It was just a very, very tough watch.
I feel like the DC animated universe has such a leg up on the cinematic because of that. I love the animated movies.
Oh well, I mean the animated series, the television programs, the have so much fun with it, and as well, get Bruce Timm involved, for God's sake. Let's get some of that energy involved. I think that'd be cool. Okay, let's move on. Thank you very much indeed for that little breakdown, because I do think it's going to be an interesting 2015 when it comes to that panel. So that's going to be interesting, and no doubt we will have some more conversations from Jesse about that at some point in the forthcoming weeks, because I can guarantee at this point he's bouncing up and down and just going, "Oh, I want to get in on this. I want to talk about this." Okay, right. Okay. Let's move on, because I wanted to talk about where I've been. This is where I do a little bit of talking now, because this has been a very long weekend for me, because I work as a DJ on an evening, which means that my nights do get very late, and I do tend to travel a little bit of a distance as well for what I do, DJing to crowds up and down the UK. So much so that I drove an hour and 40 minutes or hour and 30 minutes to Liverpool last night, where I played to a very nice room. Everyone had a great time. Finished at 3 o'clock in the morning, at which point I then drove to Kendal in Cheshire, or Kendal by the Lake District. So another hour and 40 minutes north. At which point I then parked myself into a car park, wrapped myself in a duvet, and got an hour and a half sleep. At which point I then woke up and took part in the final day of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival, which was been running all this weekend. The reason why I want to attend this because there are two major comics festivals in the UK. There's plenty of small cons and small press conventions in the UK, but in the UK there are two major conventions which deal primarily with sequential art, and that is the Thought Bubble art festival that takes place next month in Leeds, and there's this, which is, like I say, the Leeds International. Let me just see if I can get that closer to the camera.
Oh, fine.
Isn't that cool?
That's cute.
Leeds International Comic Art Festival. Those are the characters that they've created. This is the festival guide. This is something that I've been reading a lot about over the last 12 months, and it does seem that pretty much every major artist that isn't going to be at Thought Bubble was at this convention. There was Dave Gibbons involved, Gary Erskine, Charlie Applard, Becky Cloonan, Eddie Campbell, a lot of the birth of English comics people were there as well, which was, the whole thing has just been one hell of an event. And even with just attending on the Sunday as well, it was really insightful to see. I went to the Becky Cloonan panel, where she talked a lot about how she felt the dichotomy of working inside the big titles with the licensed characters with DC, Marvel, Image, etc., and self-publishing her own books as well, and feeling the freedom of as an artist for both camps. So that was an interesting panel. I really enjoyed hearing her talk. And then there was also a brilliant panel which was called Divas and Fatales, where they had Ryan Hughes, who is the artist of Soho Dives and various other very noirish characters and creations, and Sean Phillips, who has arted a great book called Fatale, if you get to check that out, which is on Image Comics. And they had drawing boards on both sides of the stage, and in the middle they had a burlesque dancer. And they basically went, okay, 5 minutes, go. And they talked about the process. And it was all put up onto a big screen, side by side, of the process that the two artists were taking. And it was just a really fascinating panel. It was great. But what's really fascinated me about this is one hell of a lineup. This is some of the major talent. We're talking a very similar setup to some European Comic-Cons, in that it's a arts festival, and in another location, the Artist Alley, and in lots of other smaller locations around the town of Kendal, that basically took up, and the town enveloped and embraced this comics art festival, very much in the way that San Diego is doing with its current model of multiple off-site event locations, obviously on a grander scale. But here's the thing that gets me. This is year 2.
Oh, that's great.
This is the second year it's been running, and already it's just this.
And they're pulling Allard and Simone in.
Yeah.
On their second year. Great.
Yeah.
What kind of attendance is it?
Sorry?
How many people do you think?
I'm not entirely sure. Admittedly, it was very quiet on the street by the time I left, because I wanted to get back to host this. I left at around 4 o'clock. The street was particularly quiet, but that's because England in the this time of year, it had started to rain, so everyone was kind of like had hidden away and found themselves somewhere to hide. But we had, a good several thousand people descending on Kendal, and like you say, some major artists, international artists. I mean, Gail Simone arrived in the UK, I think, on the Wednesday. She's staying until Tuesday, and it says a lot that she's wanting to stay in Kendal for a week. It's almost like a mini holiday. So they are attracting these great artists and this great talent towards what is technically a very small con. I think what I'm leading on to is, what is the smallest con that you've been to, and what was the kind of strengths of it that you found? Alyssa, which is the smallest con in your neck of the woods? Yeah, this is after you've been to New York Comic-Con last weekend.
Is the Portland Comic-Con in Portland, Maine. It's one large room in the basement of a hotel, and with old comic vendors and a variety of artists, but a lot of people talking, a lot of local artists just talking about what they're doing. I found it. There was this great comic book I found a couple of years ago by a local artist called Healed, which told the story of somebody of the fact that nobody ever died. And the problems that happened if nobody ever died, which is fun. But so I love the small cons too. I wish there were more of them.
I think it's something. I mean, in North America, it does seem that there's everyone kind of chasing that San Diego Comic-Con dream of getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and kind of no one really there is kind of trying to focus on that small audience, that local audience. Megan, which is the smallest con you've been to?
SD Comic Fest in San Diego. They're at a beautiful hotel in San Diego called the Town and Country. I just love walking around that hotel. It's just like really old feeling, lots of gardens and roses. It's really pretty. And so they have a fairly small room with like all the exhibitors and everything, and then in different rooms around the hotel they have a bunch of panels, and they actually have some really interesting panels that I like to go to. I went to one that was like a dystopian one that was really cool, and then one person I think they went to New Zealand and shared their whole trip of like doing all of the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings sets and just their travels around New Zealand. So they had some really awesome panels. And then I also met a friend, Rebecca Hicks, who does the comic Little Vampires. Love her, and she's super sweet, and I love her comic, and so now we became friends from that.
Excellent. Well, I'd tell you what, just very quickly then, off the back of that, I actually bumped into an artist called Sarah McIntyre at Lakes International. She's written she draws a comic for young readers called I'm going to have to say this right, Jampires. Basically, it's vampires that are addicted to jam.
Oh,
that's so cute.
How cute is that?
That's cute.
It's very cool. But it's great when I do like about certainly I don't know if this is the same with the smaller cons with yourself. In the UK, there seems to be very much a driving force to introduce young readers to comics. So there's a very strong element of kids comics and getting kids in a room to draw. And is there that in the US as well? In some of the cons,
workshops.
Yeah.
All three of you said. All three of you spoke at once.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You actually probably know a little more about this than I do, so please go on. I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, we'll go to Alyssa.
In most of the cons that I go to, there is an effort to bring the kids into it. I mean, even San Diego has it, and New York with a Kids Day. So there always is how to draw for kids and that sort of thing, so that it makes sense. And just to segue in, if I could, into and we can certainly go back to the kids aspect of it, but the business of Comic-Cons, I know that one of the reason why there are no more Portland Comic-Cons is because it was so expensive to put a con on, and the ticket sales didn't really cover bringing all of the talent in. Right. So that was unfortunate.
No, I think there is that. Like I said, I think that kind of ties in with what I was saying before about there is that challenge to try and chase, because everyone will then disappear to the slightly bigger cons because they're the headliners, as it were. But I think it's good to have those small cons to hand. Katrina, which is the cons that you go to? I mean, we haven't actually talked about your con history. I mean, which cons do you go to?
Well, as far as small cons go, I actually haven't been to a small con in a while, just because most of the conventions I go to are on work assignment. Not that I'm complaining. But I did just come back from New York Comic-Con. This is my first time back in 3 years, and I was blown away at how it's grown since 2009. Like, that used to be a smaller con. It used to be a con where, like, you know, everyone would go and we'd talk about comics and you meet your favorite artist. Now it's like George Clooney showed up and like I was in that panel, and like that was where, you know, Disney launched like Tomorrowland. We got to see more of that, and like but outside of that, you know, I go to Comic-Con. I'm doing Kamikaze in about a week or so with Movie Pilot. And I've been kind of leaning a little more, because when I was a kid, I went to both comic and anime conventions, but I'm tending to lean a little more toward the comic side of things, just because it's closer to my interests. So I do want to hit up Emerald City next year. I hear it's doing much better these days, so I'm excited about that. And I'm going back to New York Comic-Con until I die. And San Diego. But yeah, I was so blown away by New York Comic-Con this year. It was great.
I really am hoping to meet you guys out there, because I really do want to do New York Comic-Con next year. Absolutely.
A sure sign of a good con is when the like a week after you get back from the con, you're starting to book your hotel room. For me, it's I'm already on AirNib trying to find a place to stay.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We've had a couple of comments coming in. Thank you very much indeed for your comments. We've got a regular to a cup of tea. Thank you very much indeed to Janina Caro. Hello there. I'm going to Kamikaze in 2 weeks, so there you go, Katrina, someone you can meet up with. WonderCon next April as well. But the one Alyssa is talking about sounds smaller than mine.
The Portland one.
Yeah. Jesse is saying that the smallest con I've ever been to was Wizard World Nashville, around 9,000 attendees. Yes, absolutely minute, that one there.
If I could suggest that people go on a website called Convention Scene, go into their calendar. And they always have, it seems like every weekend, there are 2 or 3 small cons happening across the entire country. And eventually you can find one of these really small cons to go to.
Well, I mean, I've tried to set up a similar calendar on an Englishman in San Diego.com. There's also UKComiccons.com. They have a similar calendar as well. And yeah, it's the same as in the UK. I think we're very much chasing that North America model where every week there seems to be a con, but it very much aiming towards the creative side, like I say, the comics. So that's encouraging. It's also been interesting this weekend as well, considering that it's been kind of like the battle, well, not the battle, but certainly the attention between the two cons. We've had, like I say, the Lakes International Arts Festival, and we've had London Film and Comic-Con at Earl's Court in London, which is a Showmasters event, which is very much, you find with Showmasters that very much this very similar faces show up. Your Doctor Who classic actors, your Deep Space Nine and Star Trek actors showing up.
So maybe more like Wizard World?
Yeah.
Here in the States?
Yeah, sure. We were talking about this today, and it does, with the Showmasters events, it does very much seem a little bit like, kind of like a craft fair where you're just walking up and down and finding toys all over the place and little things. So not so much in terms of a massive amount of the creatives, but it's diverting and they're always good fun. And like I say, London Film and Comic-Con is one of the biggest ones that they do. But it was definitely between the pop culture and the comic book creatives that happened this weekend here in the UK. But I think it's in the US, it's very much kind of the smaller cons. There's always one happening around, and I just wanted to talk about the appeal of those. I think was where we were going with that. So yeah. Well, then again, there is also the appeal of New York Comic-Con. And this is going to lead on to something that we're hopefully going to be doing in a couple of weeks' time. Just to talk about something that I did announce last week. We were hoping to be joined by somebody who had written a blog post and kind of caused a little bit of a ripple in terms of attention, because it talked about artists and creatives going to conventions and finding it very difficult to compete with the fans that were kind of going to meet and join in their own little collective, and also cosplayers, instead of interacting with the artists. This is somebody, Denise Dorman, who I'm still hoping that we can get on the Hangout at some point, because I think it's very interesting to talk about what it's like on the other side of that table, to try and make it financially viable to go to a Comic-Con. So that's something that I want to talk about, especially as I think she's just been to New York Comic-Con as an as a special guest. And the other person we're going to be hopefully getting on in the next couple of weeks is also Brian Stevenson. We spoke to him a week or so before New York Comic-Con, and there is so much to talk about in terms of things that both New York Comic-Con and San Diego Comic-Con can learn from each other. I think there's been several boards that have been created on the Friends of CCI forum. What has been the major headlines about what people have been discussing about what New York Comic-Con can bring to San Diego?
There's two things that have really been talked about. The primary one has been, can Hall H in the New York Comic-Con model be cleared? A couple of, and that's been, we've got 5 pages of posts in over the course of 2 days, people debating it. There are a lot of people are really like the idea, especially with how well the New York Con was cleared. How well the room was cleared there. They really like the idea of the room clearing for Hall H, but there are some very obvious problems. I believe Comic Girl, News, Barb from formerly When Nerds Attacked, and there's a number of other people have brought up that it's just there's so many people, and how can we possibly do it? One of the suggestions that TJ Transmute brought up was breaking it into 2 sessions. So you had a morning session and an evening session. That seemed to make a lot of sense. You're just dealing with 2 lines. Handing out the wristbands the night before, and then saying, putting people up, having people line up at, whenever they're going to start lining up for the first session, and then asking people to not line up for the second session until later on in the day.
Sure.
Which brings in some problems, because you're always, as Barbara said, rightfully, if it's a Marvel panel, I'm going to line up as early as I possibly can. So
people find a way to line up.
Exactly, and then you have the problem that they had last year with the whack-a-mole, where we had these what do you call them? Unsanctioned lines popping up all over the place. So that's a really interesting discussion that's going on at this point. But the idea of being able to fit 12,000 people, 13,000 people into Hall H, as opposed to just 6,000 people, assuming no one leaves.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I know that the main issue that San Diego Comic-Con has mentioned, and when David's talked about room clearing and brought it up as a possible option before, he has always turned around and said the main thing is where to put people, where to put the lines. It was the first big thing that kind of came up when the plans for the expansion showed up, because that pretty much bit into wherever lines could be forming. It's always been about where room clearing can be, and I think New York Comic-Con was kind of that first experiment. And I'm trying to work out, did it tie in with the RFID technology at all?
How it tied? No, not particularly, because it was a wristband, so you didn't tap in or tap out with the room. You know, so there was just the when you could enter the hall, when the venue opened up. That was the only thing. Cool. So,
okay.
I've got a story about the RFID too, but that's. And there's also the other thing that New York really has going for it is it's I believe it's a 4,000 seat venue. Number one, and number two, it's set up so you can go in on one side and out on the other. In addition, it had the massive queue hall, and Katrina could speak to this too. I mean, it didn't it flow smoothly?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't end up in the queue for a lot of things because with press as well, and I wanted to talk about how New York Comic-Con handled press, which I thought went great. Press had to reserve ahead of time. And if you got your reservation, you had a reserved seat, and they would only let a limited number of outlets do every panel, you know. So you'd get like maybe 12 outlets, and that's it. And if you didn't do it, then that's just too bad for you. You have to get in the line. But luckily, we sent in our reservations a little early, and it was just so smooth. And even in the lines, like having the lines in those queue halls. I think it worked out for the convention a lot, just because, you know, it not only kept the queues in one specific place without crowding up the halls, but it also kind of, I don't know, whenever you've got a bunch of people in line, you have this sense of community, and having them all in the same room, getting each other hyped for the panel for like an hour before. Like, if I were to go on stage, I would be completely thankful for that, because these people are already just like cheering in the hallways and singing songs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So
you kind of have
so I'm a supporter of the way New York Comic-Con did it.
And you also have that a little bit with San Diego as well, because it's okay having them in a room as well, getting them hyped up. But when you've been on a floor and on the grass and slept with someone,
in a tent,
then you truly bonded. Then you really are a true friend. Oh, hello. I think I've been. Have I just dropped out of the Hangout? Oh no, there it is. The window. The window got shifted. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm trying to. Did you go to New York Comic-Con this year, Megan?
No, I was not able to. But I was wondering, what's the attendance like compared to San Diego?
According to San Diego, they sold more tickets or something. I'm not sure. But yeah.
Okay. This gets into.
You guys know much more about this.
I'm scratching my temples at this point.
I gotta speak. Let me talk.
Go on. It's all you.
According to the New York Times, they published on the 8th that there was 151,000 tickets sold. That CRBG, they wrote an article about 2 or 3 days later, quoting Lance, saying that 151,000 unique tickets were sold. People have interpreted the word unique to mean that 151,000 people were at the show. Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, say they have 130,000 people attending the show, but they track people. They don't track tickets.
Yeah. So say if one person buys a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, that's one person. New York Comic-Con, if they bought a Thursday, a Friday, and a Saturday, that counts as three tickets. and that's where your numbers. That's where your numbers come in. So I think this is going to be this conversation is going to run and run, and this is going to be discussed in the later the one when we talk to Brighton, because it is just the math just makes at the moment.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, if I got home and people were like, "Oh, the New York Comic-Con had more people," and I was like, "Look, I've been to both, and I've been inside of both." And New York Comic-Con did not have more people than San Diego. I could move at New York Comic-Con. I could, like, dance and run through the halls if I wanted to. Like, you can't do that in San Diego. You can't. Like, you know, that's why I was just like, no, really? I don't believe that.
Yeah. It kind of didn't make a great deal of sense when you just even looked at the sheer square footage, the numbers. Even if you just go to Wikipedia and just go to the numbers that involved. I mean, we're talking 500,000 square foot for the exhibition floor in San Diego. It's something like 390,000.
Yeah, and even then, there were parts of the Javits Center that they were still not using this year. So I find that exceptionally hard to believe.
This will be something we will be talking to Brian about. Absolutely.
I think the important thing for us fans to remember is the enjoyment.
Absolutely.
Both of these cons were, in my mind, premier events, and my whole life revolves around these two cons. And the way it can't on a Wizards World Con or some of the other small cons that happen. And it's an East Coast West Coast thing. The people are entirely different, which long live the difference. I've said it before, but they are both Class A cons.
This is why I set up the Englishman in San Diego. This way, as a European, we can just watch you two scrap it out. It's fantastic.
Do you notice at New York Comic-Con, just like every person you bumped into was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, excuse me. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Thank you, please." I was like, there are so many manners here. Like, what is happening? Who are these people?
You can't be.
It was
not
a good
from
relief.
New York.
I mean, like, I'm from New York, and like, you don't get that very often. Like, no matter where you are.
It's still East Coast versus West Coast thing, which I think is a fun rivalry, and I think that's all it should be, is a fun rivalry, because these two cons are both spectacular.
Yeah, and I love the way they kind of inspire each other in a way. Like, this year we had New York Super Week, which kind of served as like the off-sites for New York Comic-Con, and I really hope that New York Comic-Con takes the off-site thing to a new level, because in New York City you have an entire city that you can pretty much, if you're up at the convention center and there's a panel at Union Square, you can get there in like 15 minutes via the subway. And it's so easy to get around were there to be like a lot of off-site events, as opposed to San Diego where there's a lot of hiking involved. So you could hike optionally. I mean, you could hike in New York if you really wanted to, but you could also just hop the subway and get to wherever you're going. So.
Do you know when that new subway station is supposed to open? There's supposed to be a subway station opening close to the Javits.
I have no idea, but that is the first I've heard of that, and that's miraculous, and I hope it happens soon. Otherwise, I don't know. Oh my gosh, the hike to the Javits from like the subway is just like, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's two long blocks.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions, Megan, that you wanted to put to them? Because I mean, I think like myself, you want to go to New York Comic-Con as well at some point.
I would love to. Probably not next year, maybe the year after. But
well, when it gets up to 180,000 people.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 180,000 tickets. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Yeah, I think the pair of us really would like to go to New York. I think, like Alyssa says, for the different energies that the cons bring, and like myself and Alyssa have talked about, that the New York Comic-Con has very much, it's been driven by a commercial enterprise, whereas San Diego Comic-Con is a volunteer-run event, and that brings, especially made up of very much an old guard who are very protective of their con. So I think there's two definite different sides to the con attitude, which works. And I think it'd be good if they learn from each other. And I really would love. I'd love to be in a room where with Brian or anybody from Repop and anyone from CCI. I'd love to get them in a room. I would love to get them in a room.
And just hear what they had to say about RFID technology.
Sure.
And it would be fascinating. I would love to see CCI. If there was something that I could see CCI implement from the Read Pop innovations, it would be the RFID. I think that it might very well cut down on their ticket scalping, and it would make getting a replacement badge so easy. My son lost his badge at New York, and within 5 minutes at the will call window, he got a new one. His old one was canceled. Wow. $10.
My editor lost hers as well, and they just replaced it right away. And also, just the lines move so fast when you're getting into the con. Like if you need to pick up your badge, it's so easy. And just to see that in San Diego would be beautiful. I think they could even use that for Hall H. Honestly, that could be something to implicate there.
How? Do you have an idea on how they would use the RFID?
I would honestly use it to cap the limit of number of people in Hall H, and also kind of check people in and out of it, so you don't have people sitting for the next panel who kind of edge the people who have been in line out in a way. Because I understand hanging out in the panel room because you don't want to miss it, but then there are a ton of people in line that don't get to see it then, Yeah. So I feel like checking in and checking out of Hall H would be a really smart idea, and it'd be more fair to everybody who camped out the night before to get into that next panel,
Sure. Okay, we've got a couple of comments that have come in on the Q&A. Let's very quickly have a look at those. We've got somebody new to the Hangout. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Kylie Stills. Is it Stills or Sills? Hello there, Kylie. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I thought the NYCC room clearing was nice. Definitely limits the number of panels that can happen, though. And the wristband distribution does need tweaking. Daredevil was kind of a mess by the end of wristband distribution. There has been one or two comments which I've been reading that there is that still things that can be learnt from the various implementations that have happened. But certainly a lot of things that can be learned on both sides as well. Let's have a look at, see if we've got another one. Let's see, because there was something from Travis. Travis McIntyre, thank you very much indeed for your question. I still think that when passing out wristbands, ask if you want the whole day or a single panel, and then have the whole day people go in, and then single panel people go in when it's their time. That, I think, automatically throws up a number of problems that we have seen at San Diego Comic-Con in terms of the disabled lines. Spaces which can keep all parties happy, and that's the thing. That's an impossible line to kind of balance. I don't think it can be done. But like you say, there's things to learn, and when it comes to room clearing and the wristbands, it is something else that's new. Considering that the wristbands, always remember this: the wristbands for San Diego Comic-Con was always pitched as a data mining setup. It was all about trying to find out where the line really should end, where if you don't get a wristband that you can take the option and walk away. That was always what those wristbands were for. It didn't work like that, but that's Comic-Con. We like to queue. That's all we do, because that's it's in our DNA that we just like to find ourselves in a line and plonk our ass in it. It's just ridiculous. No, I think I've told the tale of when I did the overnight camp for the Saturday morning, and then decided I wanted to go to the restroom and find myself in a 50-long queue outside of Hall H, outside of entrance G, sorry, to use the bathroom. I'm sorry, but when you're queuing up at 3:30 in the morning to use the bathroom, that's when you know that it's an addiction, and we need to break the cycle.
Guys don't usually have to line up to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Okay, yes, that's a whole other.
Don't give anybody ideas, Megan, because then San Diego will smell like pee. We're trying to avoid that.
Or even more than it does already. Or certain parts of it, anyway. Okay, let's see where else we've got. Talking about smaller cons, we've got the Infomaniac, who's joined us. On November 30th, I'm going to the Wales Comic-Con in Wrexham. This is a Comic-Con I've heard about, very small again, but also very much dealing with artists and creatives. So that's an interesting one as well. Let's see what else we've got. We've had Travis McIntyre jump in with a couple of points. Firstly, going about the smaller cons. I'm looking forward to going to my first Emerald City Comic-Con, even though I live close to Seattle in Tacoma. But I do have to say that the growing fast. Oh, hang on, where's that disappeared to? Oh, no, it has just vanished. Oh no, there it is. I do have to say that it's no, that's right. I do have to say that it's growing fast, and I think will be the biggest West Coast con after San Diego. What are your thoughts on that?
I would love to.
Ballsy shot.
What was that? Sorry.
Oh, go on.
Alyssa first.
I was just saying that's a ballsy. Oh, sorry, I'm terrible. I was saying that's a ballsy claim, and I would like to see how that plays out.
I mean, then again, I thought WonderCon was growing quite big as well.
No, well, WonderCon is being kind of groomed to grow that way, though, by the same people.
Yeah. Okay. Alyssa?
I would love to get in contact with somebody from Emerald City and bring that forward on the board, because I've been hearing some really good comments about Emerald City Con. If it wasn't so far away, if it was on the East Coast, I'd be there.
Sure.
Especially since it's in the early spring. It's great. I need a spring con. We need more spring cons. You know, I'm done with late summer and fall cons. I need another one in the spring.
Yeah,
So.
it's one of the reasons why I'm slightly apprehensive about Thought Bubble, because Leeds in November it's slightly hellish because it gets very cold. It's always fun to watch people do cosplay at Thought Bubble, especially when they're doing slightly if they're doing costumes which are slightly revealing, for example, or male and female. But when you're dealing with the Yorkshire winter, oh my God, it's torture. But there we go. Excellent. Right. I think we've pretty much covered most of what I want to talk about, and good grief, quarter past the hour. So I think we better wrap things up. Right. Thank you very much indeed to everyone who's taken part on the Q&A. Once again, do keep the conversation going on CupOT, SDCC on the hashtag. Please do keep talking about that. And of course, you can contact us on our various social medias. You can find me on Google Plus at google.com/+ and Englishman in San Diego. You can also find me on Twitter at Englishman SDCC. Where can people find you, Megan?
You can check out my blog, The Nerdy Girly, at www.thenerdygirly.com, and I am at The Nerdy Girly on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything.
Don't forget, then, you can go to thenerdygirly.com, where you will be seeing a new post from Megan every day as starting of Monday. It's what she said.
For the next couple months at least.
It's what she's... Oh, careful, you're following it through now. I'm looking forward to it, because I've said before on numerous occasions I'm a massive fan of the nerdygirly.com. So do go. I am a massive fan. Where can people find you, Katrina?
You can find me at OKatrina on Twitter, and then my blog, which is also getting back into motion with a con report from New York Comic-Con starting Tuesday at okatrina.com.
That's O-H.
Getting the wheels going.
Yes. OH Katrina. So yes, yeah, do check out that as well.
And that's Katrina with a C. Is this the right way? No, I have to.
No, you got it right.
That was right.
You were right first time. Oh yes, I haven't actually checked out your blog yet. I've only really, like I say, we've only really spoken on Twitter, so I'm looking forward to reading that. That'd be cool. Excellent. And of course, where can people find you, Alyssa?
Yes.
Well, there is one home, isn't there?
Friends of CCI /forum. That's where we hang out and have all of those wonderful discussions about such things as ticket numbers and versus head counts versus actual ticket numbers versus the room piece.
Yeah, I took a very quick look at the board headings of current discussions happening on friendsofcci.com before we went on air, and it was NYCC versus
Yeah.
all the way down the page, and I'm looking forward to wading my way through those. I think that's going to be
I will say that there's been a couple of people, especially Jesse Lynn, the 7th candidate, who posted a really nice comparison of New York Con versus from a San Diego attendee's perspective, and just what to expect the differences. And
no, that's
very
refreshing. No, what was that? Sorry.
It was very refreshing.
It was, and I so well, yes, I will point that out if you're listening. If you want to go to thenerdtruth.com and check out Jesse's post on that, it's a great recap of New York Comic-Con. Really good read, actually. I would recommend that. Right, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. We're back again next week. Like I say, I'm really hoping that we can get our guest on. I can never remember her name off the top of my head. I do apologise. It's Dorman. Hopefully, we'll be getting her on the podcast at some point on this the Hangout. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully, we'll be also getting Brian from Repop on as well. So do watch this space. We will try and keep you up to date, and hopefully, as well, we will be joined again by our fantastic guests at some point in the future. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Right, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you in 7 days. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
As I scroll down the list and everyone can see you. Bye.
Yay.
You can now have a really big clearing of the throat now, Megan. Do you want to do that just to wrap it up? Sing everybody.
So much. It was like perfect. I didn't need to after that.